Welcome to the Dylan Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Sessler. Let me get something out of the way first before we hit up episode 12. If you want to join my inspirational text platform, go ahead and hit up 1-608-336-4480. Text me hi. It'll be an auto response, but then after that, it's my daily messages, and they come from the heart. They come from me every day. Something that's really helped a lot of people. Such an awesome platform that I'm so glad I invested in. And I absolutely love being able to connect with people. Now, it's episode 12. Haven't done a podcast in a couple weeks now for a number of reasons. One, I had annual training, so I was gone. Two, a lot's happened. A lot has happened to me in the last couple weeks. Some good, some bad. Mostly bad overshadowing the good. So let me see if I can both update people who listen to podcasts consistently and also kind of give an understanding of what I'm going through and what I've been facing. Because I think it can help people kind of understand themselves and understand what they're going through. So June 5th, I lost a soldier. The official word is that it was an accident with a firearm at home or in his apartment, I would say. He was a close soldier. He was one of my guys overseas, underneath me. Young guy. I think he was 22 when he died. He was about 20 to 21 when he was overseas with me. His first deployment to Afghanistan, my second. And he was a good guy. A lot going for him, a lot going forward. He was getting involved with the suicide prevention, suicide intervention kind of framework within the military, within the Army, trying to help guys overcome suicide and trying to be that person for people. So it was truly a shock. It was a shock to the system to really hear that and see that. The funeral, leading up to the funeral, the emotion wasn't quite there because we didn't find out it was an accident until after the funeral. So I think a lot of what was happening in my mind was just kind of holding back until I understood what happened. We had already lost 4 guys to suicide the previous, in 2020. I wanted to know. I wanted to know whether it was suicide or not. Because I think it would have made it a lot harder. And since then I've felt a lot of things. I've gone through a lot of things. I've processed a lot of things. It was hard, when I got the news. You just get one of those calls when it was my squad leader called me, and that first question, like, are you alone? And it's like catches you off guard because you're like, I feel like this is going to be a bad call. You just get that feeling. And I answered him outright without thinking about it, but I knew, like, my subconscious was telling me this is going to be bad. And then he told me, and it was just like, oh man, it's just like getting punched in the chest. It felt like I just got hit by a linebacker. And I'm driving with my family. My wife and my son are in the car, and it took me everything not to just pull over. But we were literally 2 minutes from my house. I was driving up a hill, and I ended up going really super slow, and my wife was concerned. We got home and parked, and I went around the side of the house and cried. I mean, nothing prepares you for that. Nothing prepares you to lose a guy that's 22 years old. It's not natural. It's not kind. Nothing gentle about that process. It punches you right in the gut. And it's hard. It's hard to explain to people. It's hard to explain what it's like to connect with a soldier overseas, to lead someone and then have that soldier die. And I had a lot of people at annual training coming up to me, and paying their respects to me. And I'm like, I'm not his mother, I'm not his father, but in retrospect, I was something that they couldn't even be. I was his leader. I was his mentor. I was someone that tried to give him every part of me that I could and help guide him through this mess that is life. And I don't know, it's hard not to think about where I might have failed and where I might have succeeded, and trying not to compare the two. It's a hard thing to not do. But overall, I think I did a good job with him. I think I did the best I could. And I don't fault myself for the failures that I had with him, because there were some. We didn't always get along, and I did my best. But I gave everything for him, everything I could. I think no matter what, it's hard. Whether you did a good job, whether you didn't, it's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing. And an interesting moment came up. So our colonel on the deployment came up after the funeral and stood next to me. And he looked at me and he's like, well, I asked him, how are you, sir? And he's like, tells me a story about picking up his yearbook from the deployment and how he's had to cross out 4 guys. And now he's got to cross out a 5th. And how hard that is. And I listened. I let him express that, and then he looked at me with that look in his eyes, like the I'm hurting look. And he looked at me and he said, how are you? And up until that point, I was stoic. I think that's the best word I can say for it. I was stoic. I was holding it all together. Even through roll call, there's a part in military funerals where they call roll call, and they usually call the closest guys to him, and they called my name, and I had to say, "Here, Sergeant Major." And then at the end, after they call 5 or 6 names, they call his name 3 times, and I held it together from that. I don't know how, but it was hard. But that was a tough moment when he asked me that question, how are you doing? And I don't even remember my answer, but I remember crying. I remember feeling it. I remember it all kind of hit me right there. And I flushed, and I know my face got red, and I let it out. Not good. I'm pretty sure I said I'm not good. That's what I remember. And then someone else came up to me, and I just we parted ways. And my buddy Ben, I don't think I'll ever forget this part, but my buddy Ben came up to me afterwards, and he was one of the guys that was on the funeral detail. Just did an incredible job. So much respect for what had happened. Came up to me and just gave me a hug. Ben's always been a rough guy, but in that moment, it was something different from him, and he knew what I needed. And we had deployed twice together, pretty much. He was on my first deployment, and we were really close our second deployment. And it was something he knew I needed at the moment. Came in and just gave me a hug, and it was good. It was something that was needed. It's hard. I mean, I can't express that enough, but it's so hard to sit there and know that was one of your guys that you were leading, that you were giving everything to, and now it's gone. It's like, I don't even know. I can't even compare it to anything. I lost so much with my father and understanding that whole cycle of grief, and what it did to me. And obviously, it was a different time in my life, and I was younger, and I was more ignorant to what grief really was. But man, losing my guy, that was that's a moment I will be processing for a while. I will be living with for a while, and it's not a bad thing for me to be living with it and processing it, because I also have something. This is something I want to kind of move into, was understanding where I am, understanding compared to understanding where I was. Like this idea of how I came to this moment, how I came to process things the way that I did. Because my soldier wasn't the only one that I lost in the past couple weeks. Because last week we got news that my wife and I lost a baby. And I'm not going to get into details. We were fairly early along, but a number of weeks in. So it felt real, and it was real. It just felt like things were going to finally happen. And we've been trying for a little bit, and nothing, I thought I was done with worrying about loss when I lost my guy. And here I am a couple days before Father's Day, and I get told that my child is not viable. That's tough. Father's Day was hard this year. Father's Day was a bitch of a day, and it's so hard to explain what that feels like, to be there in that moment, to see how your wife responds to it, and then to also understand just the power of what it had on my life. I've always wanted a child. I've never had one until this, and I've always wanted to be a father, and I've been a stepfather, but everybody knows, who's been a step parent, who is not a parent, everybody knows that there's a difference. That having a child of your own is something completely different than being a step parent and influencing a child. There's a difference between parenting a child and influencing a child. And I've been influencing a child for a long time. I've been influencing a lot of people for a long time. But I've never had a child of my own. And that hit hard. That hit really hard. And I think the timing was, I don't think the timing could be any worse. I don't think the timing of losing a child like 2 days before Father's Day could have been any worse. I have seen something within myself of reverting back to coping in ways that I haven't used in a long time. Right? I've been distracting myself. I mean, I think just today I spent like 3 or 4 hours scrolling through TikTok. I never do that. I don't scroll. I post and I check my comments, I check my DMs sometimes, and that's it. I don't scroll very often. If I do, it's because me and my wife do it together, and we do it for an hour max. There's so much to process. There's so much to think about that I just needed a distraction. And annual training was a good distraction from it for a while, at least from my guy. But now moving into this, I don't have anything to distract myself from or distract myself with. So it's coming down to this point where I just got to feel. And it's scary. You know, it feels scary, even though I know it's not. Because who I am now is not who I used to be. That's what scares me about grief sometimes. Is that who I used to be? Grief was something that was self-destructive. It was habitually self-destructive. That grief inspired me to hurt me, whether it was physically or mentally or spiritually. At some point, that grief became painful, became hurtful against me. I became the problem. But in both of these circumstances, losing my guy and losing a baby, it's not my fault. It's not there's nothing I can do. Neither one I can't blame either on myself. Even if it's, you know, God forbid it's chromosomal on me. I still can't blame myself for that. I can't I have no impact on my chromosomes. I can't do anything, right? Like it's but the fear is still there because who I used to be is someone that there's still feelings of, right? There's still a worry in some ways, but here's how I've worked through that. Here's how I understand that. Purpose and perspective. Right? Later this year, I don't know if it's going to be in July, especially with what's going on right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this done. But I'm coming out with a program called Pain, Purpose, Perspective, Power. And these are the 4 words that have really, it just happens they all start with P, but these are the 4 words that have really made an impact on me and how I got here. Pain, perspective, purpose, power, in that order, right? I have grown into someone that is incredibly powerful mentally and spiritually and physically. I'm strong. I'm resilient. You can't kill me. Like you can't. Like there's nothing that can tear me apart more than I can. And I don't allow that. So I have become someone that is incredibly powerful within myself. And how I got to that was understanding my pain, putting my pain into perspective and creating my purpose out of my perspective. And developing that step-by-step process of what those 4 words created within me is what I'm coming out with. And it's purpose and perspective that really allowed me to hold myself back from how I used to grieve to how I grieve now. Understanding the fear that exists was valid. Like I was not a kind person to myself back then. But now I am more controlled. I am more focused. I am more self-empathetic. I am more compassionate to me. I'm more forgiving. And I'm able to look at what I've done, what I've been through, the reality of the situation. I'm not allowing myself to fall into these traps that I used to set for myself and expecting me to be some perfect image in this perfect, representation of everything was my fault. I don't do that anymore. Everything's not my fault, but I take responsibility for the things that I do cause, but I don't punish myself for them. I used to punish myself for them that did no good, right? No good. It destroyed my mental health, and I don't want that. Right now, people ask me how I'm doing, and I've kind of responded with the real answer, which I never used to do. I respond with, I'm doing the best I can for the situation I'm in. It hurts. It hurts to lose. It hurts to lose. Doesn't matter who or what. It just hurts to lose. And I've lost 2 really huge things in my life. And I've got to hurt. I don't have to hurt because I'm making myself hurt. I'm hurting because that's what situation I'm in. I'm in a place where it's so soon after this. And I don't even know how I'm not really breaking down, talking about this stuff, but maybe that's just a testament to how I've created my perspective, is that I can talk about the hard things now without losing control. That this has become easy for me to talk about hard stuff. I've talked about suicide. I've talked about my dad's suicide. I've talked about loss so many times now that I'm not hurt by it when I'm talking about it. I feel it. I'm sure you can tell by the sound of my voice that there's still emotion there. There's still feeling there. But it doesn't have to hurt me to express it. It just hurts. And expressing it in some ways to me is important. And I'm able to talk about these things. I'm able to express these things and feel these things and open up about these things. Because that's, I think, is what is needed. And that is about perspective. That perspective is what allows me to be who I am right now. And what allows me to continue moving forward is my purpose. Is I sit here and I express these things regardless of how this is going to turn out, because I don't know if I'm going to cry later. I didn't know if I was going to cry talking about this or feel anything or get angry or anything like that. I didn't know what was going to happen with this. But purpose. I'm here to show people the way forward. I'm here to show people it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to feel if that's what you eventually do. And if people disagree with it, then disagree with them. If people don't like that you're showing emotions, and they're ashamed, if they're shaming you or embarrassed by you, like feeling loss, then leave them. Like, they're not attached to you. Walk away. If people minimize your loss, walk away. If people dismiss your feelings, walk away. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to understand. Not everybody's going to look at your timeline of how you feel and how you overcome these things and like it or appreciate it or support it. Leave them. Listen, when people don't appreciate what you need, what you actually need, not what they think you need, what you actually need. When people don't appreciate what you need, they're going to show you with their actions. And it's up to you to sit with them and allow them to impact you and influence you, to make you fearful of every interaction with them or make you worried about how they're going to respond or anxious or anything like that. Or you can walk away and you might be alone, but at least you're not being hurt by someone after you've been hurt by loss. I think those are some of the deepest scars that you can create within a human, is hurting someone after loss. By being ashamed of someone after loss, or being embarrassed by someone after loss, or dismissing someone after loss. That is not fair to them. And I want to show people something different. I want to show people an example of feeling that's okay. I want to show people that you can lose and still move forward. That you can lose really important things in your life. Allow yourself to feel them and live with them. Allow them to give you purpose. You can allow these losses to show you how to save people. You can allow these losses to show you who should stay in your life and who shouldn't. And I want to be an example of that. Whereas before, I wanted to die from that. I don't want that anymore. I lived with suicide as my thought every day of my life for 19 years. I don't want that anymore. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for anybody else. I want better. I want to show people better. I want to show people that you can find peace within this chaos that comes from loss. I am at peace with me, regardless of how I'm feeling from loss. You are allowed to be at peace with yourself while also feeling this pain, this suffering, this hurt. You're allowed to do both. You're allowed to be both. You're allowed to be chaos and you're allowed to be peace. That's called balance. You need to feel. I can't express that enough. You need to be able to feel. And anyone that tells you otherwise is a problem, especially when it comes to grief. So I don't know. I mean, I could probably keep talking for a long time, but it's already a little bit odd for me to talk this long by myself with no other question, comments. You know, I'm used to doing a live session, and I don't usually get, I usually get feedback, so I can feed off of it. These were just a couple of things that I put down on a note that I wanted to talk about and kind of give you an understanding of where I'm at. I hope that what this, if there's people out there listening to this podcast, I know I haven't made any podcasts in a while, but if you're listening to this, I hope it helps. I hope it means something to you. I hope you hear these words and you respect a part of yourself that's allowed to feel. And whether someone told you otherwise or not at some point in your life, I hope you disagree with them finally, because you see this. That's my goal. I want you to learn how to be healthy, how to express yourself in a healthy way, how to feel your feelings, not be ashamed of them. Fuck that. That's not fair to you. You don't need to be ashamed of your feelings, even if you feel them in public, where it's not normal. Because I think how we treat people in public is not normal. I think we should be allowed to feel these things in public. But we don't. And that's why stigmas exist. So let's change them. Let's talk about this stuff. Let's express ourselves. Let's feel things. Let's allow what is happening to be felt and to be understood and to be heard. And that is episode 12. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.